She lay on the cold ground, her body broken, her breath fading. Alien healers stood around her, and then walked away. "We cannot save her," they said. "She is nothing now." They left her outside with no care, no hope, and no future. But then, footsteps echoed in the dark. A human man appeared. He looked down at her weak form, his eyes burning with anger. "They gave up on you," he whispered, "but I won't." And in that moment, the story began. A story the alien world would never forget. Because the human was about to do something no alien ever dared. Something that would change everything. The sky was pale and silent when they carried her outside. The alien girl's eyes were half closed, her breath weak. Around her, the healers spoke in low voices, but their words carried no comfort. They said she was too far gone, that no medicine could save her now. One by one, they shook their heads and turned away, leaving her lying on the cold stone floor. Her mind drifted in and out of darkness. She could still hear their voices echoing in her ears. "There is nothing more we can do. Leave her. She will not survive the night." Their footsteps faded until there was only silence. The air was cold. The ground beneath her felt hard and uncaring. She tried to move her hand, but it was too heavy. Her heart sank as she realized they had abandoned her. The ones she trusted, the ones who called themselves healers, had given up completely. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Her lips parted in a whisper that no one could hear. "Is this the end?" Time seemed to slow. She watched the sky above her, its dull colors blurring as her vision grew weaker. The stars would soon appear, but she doubted she would live to see them. Then, through the haze of her fading sight, she saw something move. A shadow crossed the ground near her. The sound of footsteps returned, but they were different this time, firm, steady, and closer. A man stood over her. His face was not like the others. His skin was different, his eyes sharper, and his expression filled with something she had never seen in her own people, anger mixed with sorrow. He knelt down beside her, studying her broken form. His hand hovered over her for a moment, unsure, then rested gently near her shoulder. His voice was soft, but every word carried strength. "They left you here," he said quietly. "They think you are finished." He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "But I don't believe that." Her eyes moved slowly toward him, confusion clouding her weak gaze. She struggled to speak. Her words were faint, almost lost in the air. "You are human." "Yes," he replied, his voice steady. "And I won't walk away from you." She tried to argue, her breath shallow. "Why? I am not your kind. Why would you care?" He leaned closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Because life is life. It doesn't matter whose. You are still here, and that means you deserve a chance." Her mind swirled with disbelief. The alien healers with all their knowledge had abandoned her. Yet here was a human, someone from another world, refusing to turn away. She wanted to ask more, but her strength was slipping fast. The human man looked around, frustration written across his face. There were no beds, no blankets, nothing to keep her warm. He took off his own coat and placed it gently over her fragile body. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from determination. "You won't be alone," he promised softly. "Not while I'm here." Her breathing slowed, but her heart felt something she hadn't felt before, hope. It was small, fragile, but it flickered inside her like a tiny flame. The man lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, far lighter than she should have been. Every step he took was steady, but his mind raced with questions. Why would the healers give up? How could they walk away from someone still alive? He didn't know the answer, and maybe he never would. But he knew one thing for certain, he could not let her die. As he carried her through the empty streets, the silence pressed in around them. The stars were beginning to appear in the sky, glowing softly above. He looked down at her face, pale and fragile, and felt the weight of the moment. She stirred faintly in his arms, her lips moving again. "You will regret this, she whispered. It is useless. He shook his head. No. I'll regret it if I do nothing. Her eyes met his once more before closing slowly. She did not have the strength to fight, not against the weakness inside her, nor against the kindness she did not understand. The human man kept walking, his steps sure, his grip firm. His thoughts echoed in his mind. If they won't help her, then I will. Whatever it takes. The night grew deeper, the stars shining brighter. The alien girl's life now hung between despair and an uncertain hope. She had been left to die, but the story was not over. Because in the hands of a human, her fate was about to take a turn no one had ever expected. And that was only the beginning. The human carried her slowly through the quiet streets. The world around them seemed asleep, but inside his mind there was no rest. Every step felt heavy, not because of her weight, but because of the choice he had made. He had taken her when everyone else had turned away. He did not know if he could save her, but he knew he could not leave her where she was. The alien girl lay weak in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, and her eyes remained closed most of the time. Still, every now and then, she stirred and whispered faint words, questions that showed her confusion. She did not understand why a human would choose to help her when even her own people had abandoned her. At one point, her voice came again, so faint it was almost carried away by the wind. You are strange. You do not know me. Why are you doing this? He looked down at her fragile face. Because no one deserves to be left alone like that. Not you. Not anyone. His voice was quiet, but filled with something steady, something that gave his words weight. She blinked slowly, as if trying to hold on to consciousness, then let out a weak breath. Her hand shifted slightly, as though she wanted to push him away but lacked the strength. The healers said, I am finished. Why carry me? His steps did not slow. Because they were wrong. He didn't know if his words were true, but he wanted them to be. In his heart, he believed there was always another way, always one more chance. The night air was cool, brushing against his face as he walked. Lights from tall buildings flickered in the distance, but he avoided them. He knew where the alien healers had gone, and he knew they would never welcome her back. They had already decided her fate. If he returned, they would only shake their heads again. So he turned in a different direction. A place came to his mind, a place the aliens would never think of. It was not made for their kind, and certainly not for her. But it was the only place he could trust. As he walked, memories flashed in his mind. He remembered the first time he had seen an injured creature back on Earth, and how someone had told him that even the smallest life mattered. That thought had never left him. And now, carrying someone from another world, he felt the same truth more than ever. The girl stirred again, her voice almost like a breath. You will waste your time. I am too broken. He adjusted his hold on her, keeping her close so she would not slip. Maybe. But if I don't try, then it's certain. And I don't give up that easily. There was a silence between them, broken only by his footsteps and her faint breaths. Somewhere deep inside, she felt something shift, a question she could not answer. Why was he so different? Why did his words carry a warmth her people never gave? The road ahead grew darker, narrower. He knew it was not the safest path, but he also knew it was the fastest. His mind stayed fixed on his choice. He was not taking her to the shining halls of alien medicine. He was not seeking the advanced machines her people trusted so much. Instead, he was leading her to a small, quiet place with simple tools and caring hands. A place where healers worked not with grand technology, but with patience and heart. A place that was never meant for someone like her. Yet it was the only chance she had. He whispered, as if speaking to himself, though she heard him faintly. They see you as lost. I see you as alive. That is all that matters. Her lips moved slightly, and though her words were weak, they carried surprise. You would choose this for me? He nodded. Yes. And I'll keep choosing it until you're safe. The stars above grew brighter as they neared the edge of the city. The silence around them deepened, but within it, something new was forming. She did not know if she would live. He did not know if his plan would work. But for the first time since she was left alone, hope walked beside her, carried in the arms of a human who refused to let her go. The journey was not finished. It was only beginning. The road grew quieter as he carried her farther from the tall alien towers. The girl was still weak, her head resting against his shoulder, her breath soft and uneven. He felt her fading strength with every step, and it only made him hold her closer. He knew he had little time. If he delayed, she might slip away before he could even try. He walked past glowing signs of alien hospitals. Their doors shone with bright colors, but he did not stop. He knew those places had already judged her unworthy. They had turned their backs and spoken the cold words that still echoed in his mind. She cannot be saved. But he did not believe them. Somewhere inside, he carried a stubbornness that no refusal could break. He was heading toward a place so simple that no alien would ever think of it as a chance. Yet, in his heart, he trusted it more than their shining machines. At last, he reached a narrow street on the edge of the city. The buildings here were smaller, older, and filled with quiet shadows. One of them stood with a plain sign, its letters faded but still clear enough for him to read. It was a clinic, but not for beings like her. The smell that drifted from inside was familiar to him, reminding him of Earth. He paused at the doorway, looking down at the girl in his arms. Her eyes opened faintly, confusion flickering through them. She saw the small building and tried to speak, though her voice was only a whisper. "This is not a hospital." He gave a faint smile. "No, it's something different. But I believe it's where you need to be." Her brow furrowed weakly. "This place is for lesser creatures. Not for me." He shook his head gently. "It's for any life that needs help. You are no less than that. You deserve care, even if it doesn't look like the halls of your healers." She tried to protest, but no sound came. Her eyes lingered on his face, searching for doubt, but all she saw was quiet certainty. He stepped inside. The air was cool, filled with a mixture of scents, clean medicines, old wood, and faint traces of the animals that had been treated here. Behind a counter, a man looked up, startled. His eyes widened when he saw who had entered and what was being carried. The man behind the counter wore simple clothes, not robes of rank or glowing devices. His hands were steady but marked by years of work. He was not an alien healer, not a grand doctor. He was a vet, a caretaker of creatures often overlooked. For a moment, silence filled the room. The human carrying the girl met the vet's eyes. He did not speak at once. Instead, he lowered the girl gently onto a small table, keeping one hand near her as if afraid she might slip away. Finally, he broke the silence. "Please. She needs help. They've abandoned her." The vet blinked, still stunned. His gaze moved from the girl's fragile form to the human's determined face. "She is not meant for this place. I treat small lives, not ones like her." "I know," the human said softly. "But you are the only one who won't turn away. That's why I brought her here." The vet hesitated. His hands twitched slightly, uncertain. "This is dangerous. If others learn I touched her." "They won't," the human interrupted firmly. His voice grew stronger, filled with the same resolve that had carried him here. "All that matters is saving her. Please, do what you can. Even a little." The girl's eyes fluttered half open. She looked at the vet with a mix of fear and curiosity. "You will not succeed," she whispered faintly. "Even the healers could not." The human leaned closer, his voice gentle. "Maybe not. But he will try. And that is more than they gave you." The vet finally stepped forward, drawn by the quiet weight of the words. He studied her carefully, his eyes sharp and practiced. Though he had never seen a being like her, he recognized the signs of fading life. His heart stirred with something he did not expect. Sympathy. "Very well," he murmured, almost to himself. "I cannot promise anything. But I will not leave her as they did." The human let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His hand stayed on the girl's arm, steadying her as the vet began to prepare simple tools and medicines. The room grew tense, filled with quiet movements and soft sounds. The girl watched weakly, confusion still in her gaze. She did not understand why these two humans would care so much, why they would risk their own comfort and safety for someone not their own. Yet deep inside, a small warmth began to grow, strange, fragile, and new. The human stayed by her side, whispering softly as the vet worked. "You are not alone anymore. Whatever happens, remember that." Her lips moved faintly, though no sound came. Her eyes drifted closed, but this time, the darkness was not as cold as before. For the first time since she had been left behind, she felt a thread of hope wrapping gently around her heart. And while she rested, the vet began the work that no alien healer dared to attempt. The room was quiet except for the soft clinking of metal trays and the steady breath of the man preparing his tools. The vet moved carefully, setting bottles and instruments in place. They were not bright alien machines, not glowing with advanced energy, but simple tools meant for small lives who could not speak. His hands were steady, though his eyes showed worry. He had treated many creatures before, but never someone like her. The human stood beside the table, his hand resting near the alien girl's arm. He watched every movement with focus, as if his presence alone could give her strength. He spoke softly to her, words meant more for comfort than for answers. "You are safe here. He is going to help you. Just hold on a little longer." Her eyes flickered open for a moment, hazy with weakness. She saw bottles of strange liquid, shining needles, cloths folded neatly. It all looked foreign to her. She wanted to ask how such simple things could matter when the healers with their great machines had failed. But her voice was too faint, and even if she could speak, she no longer had the energy to question. The vet leaned over her, his brow furrowed as he studied her condition. He listened to her shallow breaths, pressed gently against her skin, and shook his head slowly. "She is very weak. Her body is fighting, but not enough. If I do nothing, she will fade." The human's voice grew firm. "Then don't do nothing. Try anything you can." The vet looked at him, hesitating. "I have no medicine made for her kind. What I have is simple. It may not work." "Simple is enough," the human answered. "They already refused her. You are her only chance now." The vet nodded quietly, then began his work. He cleaned her skin with soft cloths dipped in clear liquid. He prepared small injections, measured not by alien standards but by his own careful judgment. His movements were slow, precise, filled with years of practice. He worked not with machines but with patience, listening to every change in her breath, watching every twitch of her body. The alien girl felt the touch of the cloth, the cool sting of the medicine entering her veins. She flinched weakly, but the human's hand stayed steady on hers. His thumb moved gently, a silent promise that she was not alone. Her eyes turned toward him, questioning. He gave her a small smile. "It may hurt a little, but hurt means life is still inside you. Stay with us." Her lips parted, and a faint sound escaped. "Why do you care so much?" He looked at her, his eyes calm but deep. "Because someone has to. And I choose to." The vet continued his work, adding fluids through a thin line, wrapping soft bandages around fragile places, giving her warmth with heated cloths. It was not the shining glow of alien healing chambers, but it was care in its purest form, steady, patient, hopeful. Minutes turned into hours. The human never left her side. Sometimes he whispered small words, telling her stories from his world, of rivers and forests, of skies filled with birds. She listened faintly, not always understanding, but the sound of his voice was like a thread pulling her away from the edge of silence. At one point, her breathing slowed too much, and the vet paused, his hands frozen. The human leaned closer, whispering urgently, Stay with me. Don't let go now. You're stronger than they think. His voice shook for the first time, not from fear of failure but from the thought of losing her. Slowly, her chest rose again, weak but steady. The vet sighed softly, relief showing in his eyes. She is still fighting, he murmured. The human nodded, squeezing her hand gently. I told you. She's not finished. The girl's eyes opened again, though barely. She looked at the human, and for the first time, she did not see just a stranger. She saw someone carrying her when all others had turned away. A strange warmth spread faintly in her chest, not from the medicine but from the human's presence. The vet added another line of fluid, adjusting the flow carefully. He checked her pulse, then looked at the human. It is working. Slowly. She may survive this. The human's shoulders relaxed, but he did not let go of her hand. He leaned down, speaking softly so only she could hear. See. You are still here. They gave up, but you proved them wrong. Her lips trembled as she tried to form words. At last, a whisper came out. You stayed. He smiled gently. Of course. The night outside deepened. The stars shone quietly beyond the windows, their light spilling into the room. Inside, the faint sound of her steadying breath filled the silence. The fight was not over, but the hardest part had begun, and she was not facing it alone. The alien girl, once left to fade in the cold, now had hands working for her, voices keeping her awake, and a presence refusing to let her be forgotten. The path ahead was uncertain, but something had already changed. In the quiet room, among simple tools and fragile hope, a new bond was being formed, one that no alien healer could have ever imagined. The ship floated silently above the forgotten valley, its silver frame glinting under the pale glow of twin moons. Inside, Ethan walked slowly through the narrow halls, each step echoing against the walls as if the ship itself were breathing with him. For the past weeks, he had lived with the alien widows, learned their quiet habits, their fears, and the strange songs they whispered when they thought no one was listening. Yet, deep inside, he felt something shifting, something pulling him toward a truth that none of them seemed ready to speak. One night, as the widows gathered near the central fire pit of the ship, their voices lowered, almost hesitant. Ethan noticed the way their eyes darted toward him, then away, as though they carried a secret too heavy to share. The eldest among them, a tall woman with silver streaks across her dark skin, finally broke the silence. Her words trembled, but her gaze did not. She said that this place, this valley, was not chosen by chance. It was a sanctuary built by their ancestors, a place hidden from the eyes of those who had once abandoned them. Ethan listened, his heart tightening with every word. A sanctuary? Then why did it feel like a cage? He thought of the locked doors he had passed, the sealed chambers that no one entered, and the hum of machinery below the deck that the widows never explained. Something about it all made him uneasy, as though the valley itself was alive and watching. Later, when the widows went to rest, Ethan wandered quietly to the lower levels of the ship. The air grew colder the deeper he went, the walls lined with symbols he could not read. And then he heard it, a faint sound, almost like a heartbeat, coming from behind a sealed door. He pressed his ear to the metal and felt warmth seeping through, strange and alive. When he returned, one of the younger widows was waiting for him in the hall. Her eyes were wide, her hands trembling as she whispered, "You must not go there, human. Some truths are not meant to be seen." Ethan held her gaze, refusing to look away. "Then why does it feel like you're hiding it from me? From all of us?" She said nothing, only lowered her eyes and stepped aside, her silence speaking louder than words. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The stars outside glittered like distant promises, but inside the ship, shadows stretched long and heavy. He realized that the widows had not just come seeking shelter. They had come with a reason they feared to share, and perhaps one that could change everything he thought he knew about them, about this valley, and even about himself. The question burned in his mind, what had really been abandoned here, the widows, or something far greater? And why did he feel as though he was at the center of it all? The night sky above the lonely cabin was wide and endless, filled with stars that looked like they were whispering secrets to one another. For decades, he had watched those skies in silence, never expecting anything to change. But now, everything was different. Inside the cabin, warmth flickered from a small fire, and around it sat 11 figures who once seemed like strangers but now felt strangely connected to him. They were the widows who had come to him for shelter, each carrying their own story of loss, each carrying a piece of pain they no longer wanted to bear alone. At first, they had been quiet, almost distant, as though the walls they had built around their hearts could never be broken. But with time, something began to shift. He noticed how their voices slowly filled the empty spaces of the cabin, how their laughter, hesitant at first, grew lighter as nights passed. The once silent rooms now carried echoes of life again, something he had forgotten he missed. He often wondered why they had chosen him, a man who had lived apart from the world for so long. But the answer came one evening when one of the widows, her eyes soft yet strong, said quietly, "Because you saw us when no one else did." Those words stayed with him, more powerful than anything he had ever heard. The bond between them grew in ways he could never have predicted. He helped mend their broken memories, while they reminded him that he was never truly alone. Together, they began to create a new rhythm of life. Days turned into something meaningful, not measured by silence anymore but by the small joys they found together, sharing meals, telling stories, and even learning to dream again. But deep inside, he knew their presence was more than just fate. It felt as if the universe itself had brought them to him for a reason greater than any of them understood. Each woman carried not only grief but also strength, hidden like seeds waiting for the right time to bloom. And in his presence, those seeds slowly awakened. The cabin was no longer just his refuge. It was theirs. It became a place of beginnings, not endings. The once empty halls now held warmth, and where sorrow had weighed heavy, hope began to take root. Yet, as much as they had built something beautiful together, there lingered a sense of something larger waiting beyond their walls. He could see it in their eyes when they looked at the horizon, a silent question of what lay ahead, of whether this fragile peace could last forever. On a quiet morning, he stood outside with the widows gathered behind him. The sunrise spilled across the land, golden and vast, touching each of them with its light. For the first time in many years, he felt not just alive but needed. And as the warmth of the day spread, he realized that this was not the end of his story, nor theirs. It was only the beginning of something greater, something neither the widows nor he had ever dared to imagine before.